Community Heart Media. Your voice, your heart, your opportunity. Welcome to tonight's show.
Well, we're here on 98.9 Northwest FM, and we just had Jack's show, Night Moves. It was a good show, Julio. On here, we've got lots of action happening at the station tonight. And, mate, how are you, Julio? Did you have a good Easter?
I did. I was recovering and still a bit, but I had a good time having Easter eggs and food and trying to relax, actually. I'm still a little bit chesty.
Chesty?
Yeah.
What about you, Cal?
Yeah.
How was your Easter? Did you go on that big trip?
Yeah, I did. It was really, really nice. Highly recommend to anyone needing to use public transport to make the most of some of the reduced regional fares at the moment. Absolutely. And cross-state as well.
She's always out there in the community knowing what's going on. She's amazing. Now, Gloria Anderson's our special guest. And Gloria, great to have you on Community Heart Radio. And how was your Easter first up?
Thank you for having me, Mark. My Easter was lovely. We had a lot of my kids had chocolate bilbies. I tried to skip the chocolate, but yes, it was lovely. Definitely.
Well, it's so great to have you tonight. And look, you've got your story to share tonight, so it's going to be a bit heavy, but I mean, with a lot of hope at the back end. Just maybe introduce yourself. Who is Gloria Anderson?
I'm obviously Gloria Anderson. I have been involved in the community here in Dandenong since 2006. So we started at that time I was still married. So I started working with my then husband. I started working in a local drop-in center. So always had a heart to work with in the community with people struggling with all sorts of issues. So that's been my background. So I've been ever since pretty much nonstop working in the area with multiple different organizations. I'm still part of a local organization, and I started another soup kitchen for a while called Stone Soup. I think I did an interview with you then when I was still running that one. So yes,
you certainly are a community person, and but look, I suppose many of us were pretty horrified to read your story in the weekend paper. It was a horrific story, Gloria. Do you want to sort of maybe run us through the lead up to the story and before we get into the story itself?
Sure, definitely. It actually sort of all evolved around the time I was going through my separation with my ex-husband, and we always had an open house anyway. We always took people in. I remember once we had, in a 2-bedroom flat, we had us staying with 2 kids, plus a couple staying with 3 dogs, I think 2 cats and whatnot. So it was pretty cramped. So always used to having a lot of people around. But around the time leading up to the incident, the abduction actually that took place, I had actually started taking boarders in to help me pay with the rent, because with the separation, I'm losing a bit of financial dependency and stuff like that. So just trying to make ends meet, and that's sort of.
Before we go further, can we just take a step back for all of our listeners and viewers out there, and Mark, the story. What's the story? What's the paper? Tell us a bit about that.
Definitely. The art, I came out with my story. I sort of went public with my story. The reason I went out public with it is because I'm looking for some law reforms. Because I got abducted and taken interstate, somehow the Australian government or the state, somehow they don't communicate. And so I had to, even though even the courts admit it was one continuous crime, I had to go through 2 trials, one in Sydney in 2013, and then Darren was extradited to Melbourne and had then I had to go through another trial in 2018. So altogether, the whole process for one crime, I had to endure 7.5 years of court cases, which is
Wow.
absolutely unnecessary.
And so this was recently just released in a local paper. Is that what you're referring to, or what Mark
Yes,
was
it was
referring to?
released. Yes, it was released in the
Yeah.
Good News Weekend,
Okay.
or it's in the Age, I believe, Sydney Herald in Sydney, I think. So it is online, but yes, so that's
But
also.
it was a horrific story that we read in the Age Good Weekender. And Gloria, the backstory is this guy actually was someone that was involved in the drop-in centre. You had taken in. He lived at your house as a boarder. I mean,
Yeah,
it's a horrific story, isn't it?
yeah, he came in to volunteer, and that seemed like what somebody would call a big teddy bear sort of personality. If friendly, and no alarms went off. I mean, he did say, I had a bit of a rough patch, and in a place like a drop-in center where people come and everybody's there to have a second chance, if you're not giving a second chance, you defeats the purpose of what we are trying to do as a humanity. um, so definitely, so yes, he was a boarder paying rent and just living. He lived with me for about 8 months before things sort of turned bad.
So
Wow.
did you have any, I suppose you did have any suspicion that something like this might happen? And so what actually happened? You knew this guy quite well. He lived with you for 8 months. So, you would have known him quite well, yeah?
I knew him well enough, but to what extent does anyone know anyone? So it's one of those things. It's like, if people sort of go a bit weird, I guess they just switch someday. I guess someday this switch flicks somewhere, and you don't know what can turn a person around. So it's, I guess, never know, I think.
So what actually happened, Gloria?
Do you want me to start from day one? um Well, it sort of started off. We had gone for a birthday party for one of our volunteers. Sort of come back. He had actually previously had made few advances, and actually I was assaulted once previously. Came to terms with it, dealt with it. So I thought anyway. But I'd rejected his, his what do you call say? What's the word? My brain's just gone.
His advances.
Francis, that's right. I'm going in circles in my head. And I guess it did calm down for a period of time. So, but I guess it wasn't. And then just that day after a birthday party, I guess something just flicked, and he just what it call was happy, with the rejection. Obviously, he didn't take it too well. Let's put it that way. And then he just snapped. And then I was assaulted that night. And then was how you hear this term. You hear the term in psychological terms, I guess, when a person is attacked, fight or flight. But there is another one people don't usually refer, is freeze. So I went into freeze mode. So people go like, how do you do that? How just like a lot of domestic violence victims, they also freeze as well. Because it's somebody they trust. It's like somebody they know. It's like, what just happened? They're trying to make sense of it all. And so, from that, obviously, then next day things turned really. I thought he would turn himself in, which he said he would, and obviously, didn't really work that way. And then, I was. Then he held me captive in my own house for a day. I was tortured, physically tortured, quite brutally, quite severely, with all sorts of things. Physically, I had needles through my body.
Oh, wow.
Different things. It was just quite severe. And then I guess he got scared that he was going to get caught. somehow, and so he decided to, uh, uh, yeah, leave the house, and then later chuck me in the boot of the car and drive me across the state. So
Wow. So Gloria, he was living with you, if I'm correct,
yes, he was living
and
in a granny flat at the back.
and this was through a community outreach that you were managing, or just volunteering at, or a
Yeah, I was
local member?
volunteering. He was a volunteer as well, so it was
Okay.
so like I said, it wasn't. I guess a lot of people misunderstand. Sometimes I try to tell the stories like, oh, he was like this homeless person or something
Yeah.
like that. It wasn't.
Yeah.
He came from even during the trial. I never met his parents, but I saw his parents. He seemed like he came from a sort of a decent back family. So it wasn't somebody you could
It's
Wow.
trust.
it's Gloria, it's very hard to imagine how you'd be feeling or what's going on in your mind or how you're coping with this or what's going on. You've been attacked, you've been and then you've been put in a boot. I mean, it's just I wonder how one survives this.
Uh, I guess you keep going up. I guess while he was torturing, there was all sorts of stuff happening. So he was trying to get money out of my bank account. He obviously was controlling. Biggest control was obviously torture was one. Two, the other one was he threatened to harm my kids. So he, I
Mm.
don't know to this day that he did or did not apparently send photos of then my house, the house I was staying in at that moment, and photos of my children to somebody. And he said, "Oh, if you don't do X, Y, Z, then your kids are going to be harmed." He was saying stuff like, "Oh, I know this friend of mine. Uh, he can do stuff with pliers. He doesn't care if it's a child or what." And so he was threatening that my kids would be tortured. So it was like
Mhm.
so controlling through fear and stuff like that. So at
So Gloria, there was no red flags beforehand. He came in and lived. You offered for him to stay, and
not
then
necessarily there were no major red flags for me. I guess at that moment I would also say if there were red flags, I was so engrossed in the fact that I was getting divorced and trying to survive.
right, yeah, yeah,
I was very vulnerable. Um, just you know I mean, divorce itself is big thing, so you're going through the mental process, plus being
yeah.
now I'm a single mom of two children. How am I going to look after them?
Mm,
Mm.
I don't have any family here. I'm by myself, so it was just, I guess, should I say, a prime target, maybe is
yeah.
Mm.
probably the best way to put it. I was vulnerable.
Mm.
And he just used the opportunity. I did, however, find out when I returned after the incident. He he was isolating a couple of other girls in people we knew. So it was like
Wow.
he walked with one girl, and he would they used to walk together to work. So he would sort of walk purposely in like isolated alleyway or stuff like that. And she did once, and she kind of freaked out, and then she like, nah, nah, I'll walk by myself.
Mm,
So, Gloria, what was going
Mm.
on for you during all this? Are you in survival mode, or you just like how are you coping with this, and How is your body and yourself reacting to this while you're in the boot and across this whole going across states, driving from one state to another?
Uh, I guess I was frozen, to say the least. But I, I guess you're processing in your brain what's happening, but at the same time trying to just do whatever he asked me to do just to stay alive, whatever that was. Um,
Mm.
and I, I have no doubt. I mean, even the detectives said the same thing, that he would have killed me. So his
wow.
initial plan was that he was going to drive me to the border of Victoria and New South Wales and leave me there because he didn't have a car, so he would use my car. But and then I was going to make my way back to Victoria by myself. and he was going to go further on, apparently to Queensland. But the only thing sort of that kept me going was my children, and two, I think, my faith was my biggest thing that sort of sustained me, should I say. Like there was a lot, like I don't know, but when you're in the boot, there's nothing else to do besides praying, right? So that's a lot of praying. So praying for like weirdest prayers, like praying for a lightning strike, maybe, or then there was praying for get me out of here, and then there were prayers of if I'm gonna die, then I'm gonna die. I had accepted that fact that I was okay with that, and I'd made peace with the fact that if that was the ultimatum, if that was the end of my journey out of this, then that was it. But at the same time, if I did survive, that I better find a way to survive. So yeah.
So Gloria, you mentioned that you're not from Melbourne, Australia, and don't have whereabouts are you originally from? What about your background?
I'm from India, so I met my ex-husband in India, so we sort of married there. We came here to Australia, so yeah, that's my background. So and yeah,
and you've often worked in the community space, as you touched on earlier.
Yes. My father was a doctor. He was an orthopedic surgeon, so he would often, help people out. Even sometimes pick people off the street, treat them, bring them home. My mom and dad, would often pick people home. There's a funny story I just remembered as you were saying this. Is like once my mom, she picked up I don't know, he was from somewhere from Eastern Europe. And so we had a ambulance, so she had used that. So they had gone out somewhere on outreach, next city, and they'd come back. And so this guy they had picked up had, so obviously he'd been out in the streets for a while. So he had, blonde hair, so he had hair had, grown, blue eyes, and the old classic picture of Jesus, that we see in churches, the old really sort of blonde hair, blue eyes sort of image of Jesus. So I remember as a kid, I was I don't know, 4 or 5, I don't know, whatever age. And I remember this ambulance driving into our house, and I was like, "Oh, there's Jesus in the back of the ambulance." But he was a homeless man. Yes, he was homeless. We later found out he had been robbed, and poor bugger. Mom sort of helped him out, and But yeah,
Gloria, did your family stuff? Did that help you with this incident, this horrific journey you were on in the back of the car? Did your family background help you get through this? And what sort of happened with the car? Where did you go? And how are you with us today?
Definitely. I guess when we started, before we started taking people proper borders in, we were taking homeless people in, like people who were struggling or just even transitioning. I remember the first person we took in, I was still married then, and I remember discussing with then my ex-husband, say, what if something happened to me or to us as a family, or to have anything happen to the kids, were we still willing to take people in? Like all the worst case scenario you can think of. And the answer was yes. Yes, we would still do it. And I guess that was very important. Even at that time, probably seemed like a minor thing, but it was really important in the scheme of things when, down the road, even though I had separated, but, this scenarios had changed. I was taking a border in, not a homeless person in. That thinking was still there. It's like, regardless of whatever happened, we would still help people out, and we were still willing to do that. And then, yes, like Mark asked, we, I guess, I got driven all the way to Young in New South Wales. That's where, I mean, I was obviously, we had multiple stops along the way. I was, I guess, tortured, assaulted along the way. But when we reached Young, um, we Darren booked a motel, should I say, a motel room where we stayed for a little bit, but then towards the end, so this happened over the weekend. So this is like Saturday night, Sunday. This is like reaching Monday morning. So Monday morning we booked in a motel. By Monday afternoon, again I was tied up. My hands were tied at the back. He had put a tape over my mouth. He had locked me in the cupboard, and he said he was apparently going to go and spill fuel in the car or something. That's what he said. He was like, "I'll be back in 5 minutes." But he locked me in the cupboard, tied it up so I couldn't get out. He cranked the television up really loud so I couldn't. If I did scream, nobody would hear me. And I don't know how long I was there, but I managed to sort of, I guess, nature called. I had to go to the loo. I had to go to the toilet, and I was like, I have a little bit of dignity left. I'm not going to pee in my pants. That was my ultimate. So that's sort of, it was like a little bit of me left, whatever that is. And I managed to push the the wardrobe door with my leg and with my foot sort of leaning against the wall. I managed to push it. I remember the door going down and just staring at the door and going, "Oh my God, if he walks in right now, I'm dead." But I don't know. I don't know. It seemed like forever, but I managed to run and go to the reception and ask for help.
So, Gloria, how long ago was this? So this was 2018, did you say earlier?
No, 2018 was my last court case in Victoria. 2011 July was the incident.
July 2011.
Yeah.
And I think it's still fresh in your mind, right?
Yes, because I had to keep it fresh for so long because of the trial. Yeah. I could not move on for such a period of time because, I had to keep reading it because there was a trial coming up. There's something else coming up. So, I could not talk about it. I could not share. I could not, It was like closure. Even my psychologist struggled with me in the sense because it was the first case where, even though the incident took place a long time ago, I could not move forward. I could not close the chapter because more was happening. Even one trial happened, but I had to wait for the second one.
So they caught this guy, and you're here today, which is like a miracle in my mind that you're here on radio talking about it. How did you survive and then live? I mean, you've done so much since, which we'll hear about, but how did you get through all this, Gloria?
My faith, I think. That's the best answer I can give. And friends like you. I occasionally have had a bad day and I call my friends and I'm like, I need to get out of my house. And I've called occasionally. Sometimes I've called Mark. It's like, can we go away somewhere? I've had a bad day or a bad month, or can we have a coffee? Just debrief. I think that really helps. I'm having a good, good sort of friend circle has really, really helped me to keep me sort of sane, should I say. And yes, definitely my faith has been my biggest one, and a good psychologist. Let me put that way. If I did not have that, definitely not. I would not have survived. So yeah, so that's been.
So Gloria, what happened when you went downstairs, like you said, and you told the reception to say you'd been abducted? Is that what they call it? Don't want to. Yeah. What was the response after that? What steps? What happened?
Poor lady, the receptionist, she was actually a fill-in. The owner wasn't there, so they were filling in at that time. So she just went white, just like a sheet. So she was obviously terrified. Here comes, like, I'm walking in with my hands tied, with tape hanging on the side, just like not a pretty sight at all. And yeah, so they straight away called the police. I sort of, hid in the corner because I wasn't sure if Darren was going to drive in straight away or, would react. I had no clue. So that was, then the police came and obviously, photos and stuff like that. But after that, I was taken to the hospital. Obviously, all my, the forensics first, take photographs of all my injuries. My clothes were taken away. I guess from that, my charity started. I guess after years, which, and then from there, because Young was a very small town, like I mean, small, but small in the sense they didn't have a big forensics, what do you call, I don't know, facility or whatever. I guess it was, it was dark.
So Julio put a map up then, Gloria. So Julio, maybe put the map back up again. And I mean, where is Young on this map? I suppose we can't. It's sort of how many hours from Melbourne?
I marked with the yellow circle.
Right on top right hand side.
Oh, yes. Wow! Yeah, that's a long way, isn't it?
Yeah. So from Young, I was taken to Canberra for forensics. So that's where they took him, and then on the way, and then around that time, I found out that they had found Darren. He had apparently crashed the car, and he was unconscious or whatever. And they arrested him, obviously, because by that time, it had been notified. So that was pretty much on that evening, Monday evening. And then so like I said, my charity, which I've started now out of thinking of you from one survivor to another, sort of stemmed out of that experience. The last my last bit of my abduction, should I say, the forensic side of it. Because
tell us a bit more about that. Like, anything and everything about it.
Yes. So last year I was I always wanted to help people. I always wanted to help victims, even before this whole, incident. I always had a heart to sort of help victims of assault or domestic violence or anything. But I was just thinking of what's the best practical way to help. So last year, I was thinking about my own experience, and I remember, like, even when I was in Canberra, like, you can imagine Canberra, middle of winter, it's frosty, and I was walking with feet. There's like cold ice, and there's like no shoes, and that's so I asked the doctor, I was like, my feet are freezing. Can you please find me something? Find me slippers or some, whatever footwear you have. So the doctor was nice enough to find, I don't know, she found a pair of socks from somewhere. They could not find me shoes, so they gave me a Ziploc bag with a rubber band to hold the Ziploc bag up to wear it as shoes. So that was my shoes for a day or two. But even the clothes that I was given in Young were like, you know how you have secondhand clothes? And then there is another level of secondhand clothes, the third or fourth grade secondhand. The secondhand clothes had another secondhand sale, probably that one. So it was like really bad. So having lived through such a horrible sort of incident, and then given something like that wasn't really dignifying, or wasn't really, what do you call it? Wasn't uplifting, or just made it feel worse. So so the idea was to I called up Monash actually and said, like, I want to donate some clothes. Are you interested? Like, I would like to donate on regular basis some packs of clothes and underwear, because I know out of my experience it was horrible.
Mm-hmm.
And they were like, yes, we are desperate, please. And I was like,
Wow.
okay. So I kind of figured out that there's obviously a need in the institutions. There's plenty of help outside. There's salvos, there's release, when you leave hospital, when you leave, but there's nothing inside that's targeting people when they are there. So yes, so
I mean, Gloria, it's an amazing story, yours, because you've been a victim of this horrific abuse, this terrible stuff that's gone on to you personally, and now you're really wanting to help other people that are going through similar things to what you've gone through. So it's a real turnaround. It's just incredible. And yet on here tonight talking about your story, you've shared your story, and it's really, you're sharing your story for a number of things, I gather. One is because you started this charity helping others, and you really do need our support. And plus, I think you want to change the laws that made it so added to your trauma, really having to go in 2 states, one, New South Wales and Victoria, saying your story over again. It must have been so bad, but you're having some success with this changing the law, aren't you?
I'm hoping so. I did talk to Mark Dreyfus, so he's the Attorney General. But I guess there's already an understanding between the states, the states up north, so Northern Territory, Queensland, and Western Australia. They already have some sort of a treaty there, where there is abduction. So there is only one trial, but there's nothing at the states here below. So I'm sure there's some common sense can prevail, where they can have some sort of understanding. I know it cannot be changed at the federal level, but I'm sure there can be some sort of understanding where a victim is not dragged through, trials like this. This is one particular law. There's another law that I'm asking, that's Victorian state level. Victorian victims of crime assistance is given. Like I was helped out by them. So they give out assistance for a period of time. So they stopped assisting me after 6 years, because that's what the limit was. They've extended it to 10 years. But even like for a person like me who's gone through the system for so long, 10 years seems nothing. Yes, I'm asking the Victorian government as well, so they can have mental health for a country that really prize mental health. We are always on for mental health, and people like me who really need mental health assistance, we are not getting any. And because they've got a cap, and even though my name was still in the system, they wouldn't give special consideration or extend my extend help.
So Gloria, one of the reforms you're saying, correct me if I'm wrong, one of them you are wanting them to introduce is having a look at, so you don't have to go through trials, say in New South Wales and one in Victoria. Is that the first reform?
Yeah.
And the second one is for an extension of mental health support. For those, right?
So that's on state level. Yeah.
Okay, and that's on the state level. And so is that looking at putting in some policy so there isn't, like you said, that 6-year or 10-year limit? So it means that you can get that support unlimited. Yeah.
Hopefully that'll be really, really good. I mean, I'm sure there are, people who can have 6 years or whatever, but like somebody who's gone through trauma like me, and not only that, my name was still in the court system, and they still rejected assistance, which is like stupid. And I felt like saying, your system is traumatizing me. Come on, help me. It was
hey, Julio, it's hard for us to relate. I mean, it's just you can't imagine what you'd be feeling if you were Gloria going through this. How do you react to this?
I'm just amazed how we still got it so backwards, as in we got a separation between health requirements and law requirements, and they seem to want to gel everything all together at once, which isn't a really good practice, because by the sounds of things, Gloria needs health support. They should be only done by medical practitioners, and then a law reform where you need a victim to go through the situation once, and it should be enough. It shouldn't continue on different case scenarios in Australia. So yeah.
Mark and Julio, I don't know if you remember this. Last year, we interviewed someone, sharing in regards to domestic violence, their story and reform level. And one thing that always stuck with me, and you can probably relate to this, Gloria, is in terms of the timeframes and who has access to support, that many people across Australia are from different cultures as well, who aren't permanent residents, who may be paying, for support, but don't have any entitlements, so don't have any government assistance. And so that's one of the biggest barriers, they say, with anyone such as yourself, where they're not entitled to any of that support. Do you know much about that, Gloria? Mark?
I'm definitely aware. I was helped out while I was running Stone Soup. The drop-in center in Dufton. I met a lady who had come. She had domestic violence sort of back. She was her status was a refugee status, and but we had separated. But yeah, she struggled to get assistance because of that reason. Like in my case, at the moment, I get 10 sessions from Medicare, but rest I'll have to pay. My psychologist asked me, what do you want to do? Do you want to space them out? I'm like, no, I can't space them out. I need it. Like before I strangle somebody. Not really, not literally, but it's just that I need that to keep me going.
And also what's quite relevant with this, and for others who have been in your position, is what's coming up a lot is post-traumatic stress.
Yes.
So sometimes things that you think about don't initially come up for 6 months, 12 months, 3 years, but will come up later, and you still need to work through that.
Definitely. Because my process was so prolonged, like stretched out, I could not really bury it, or even could not say that word, but I could not really process it. So a lot of my PTSD sort of came after. By the way, Darren died in prison. I forgot to mention that. After a year after his sentencing, he passed away. He got leukemia.
Wow.
But when I found out he passed away, because that was another thing, my PTSD hit me like a ton of bricks, because I was still on fight and flight mode, in the sense I was still on survival mode, because of the chances of him coming out. What do I do then? Do I leave the country? Do I leave the state? What do I do? How do I survive? So I passed away. So I just froze. Like my body just freaked out. It was like, what do I do? It was just like trying to survive. So yeah, PTSD hit me really, extremely hard after that. I don't know if Mark, you remember, I had a whole lot of health issues. My stomach started churning, no reason, went to the doctors. You could not find any fault, did all sorts of blood tests, couldn't find any fault. It was just PTSD.
Well, it's a heavy story, and Chris said here you must have feared for your life, and obviously you did, but I'm just really thankful that you've got your life and that you're giving your life back to others. It's quite a remarkable story, Kelly, don't you think?
Absolutely. You're someone who many of us aspire to. What you talk about your faith a lot. What drives you, Gloria, to be able to share the story? My thinking is, are you going to be writing a book, a movie? Many people want to know about this journey, so that then you can really share that story.
I have been writing a book. It's been on hold at the moment. I guess it's been on a hold, and it makes sense at the moment, because if there are law reforms, then I can write from a happy ending, I guess. So I think
you can write from a happy ending now. I just sort of, as you've been speaking, Gloria, I've been thinking you're sort of like the Easter message. And James is here, is wishing everyone happy Orthodox Easter. And I think your story is a bit like Easter. We spoke last week about the hope of Easter, and in some ways you had that sort of death experience, and now you've got a life experience that you're giving to others. So your story actually gives hope to others that have been through horrific things like yourself.
Agreed.
But look at how you're living your life. You're giving your life away. You're getting on with your life. It's not easy. You still got the scars of what happened, but you are moving forward, which is remarkable.
Attempting to. I must say, I can, even though as I've been sharing the story, I don't know if you notice, like I can tend to be very robotic, but that's my way. It's a lot of my survival mode, should I say. It's a lot of my, I have to, when I'm sharing my story, I have to sort of distance myself mentally.
Yeah.
So I become a bit robotic when I'm telling my story, and like people are like, how can you not be so emotional? Or, I'm very going factual rather than, going into the story and getting emotionally, because if I do go there, then I won't be telling a story, let's put it that way.
Yeah, exactly. Julio, you served, you've worked in the armed forces, and you see and hear a lot of things. What's your take on it? And you've obviously seen a lot of different circumstances as well.
No, well, I think this is yes, you're right about that, but this is a bit different. I think we actually get warned quite a lot about what's going to happen, and you get taken through all the scenarios, and then you even get told to write a letter to your loved one saying goodbye, basically, to hand over. So it's a little bit different to Gloria's experience. But I got one thing to ask you, Gloria, and that's, even with us, we go through this idea of what brings a happy moment to you, so you don't go back into that really bad, shady environment in your head. Do you have something that helps you every single day to basically cope with the day moving forward?
My faith. And like Kelly asked me previously, I think so that drives me to what I'm doing as well. I think so. It's one of those things I see. Yes, I've experienced what I've experienced, but I have seen flaws in the system, and it's my faith that challenges me to challenge the system as well, and be a steward of what I've learned from out of this experience. And I don't think I'll be fair to myself, or to the faith, or be have that integrity to the to what I believe, if I can't pursue justice, if I can't pursue love, if I can't pursue those things. And those things drove me, or sort of are my route to serving in the community. And this is what also drives me to sort of see the change in the law reform, like in the system as well, because it needs to be fair for all. So I'm not fighting this for me, because my case is done and dusted. I'm fighting for somebody else, for my daughter, for my son, for the next generation, for my nieces. So yeah.
Well, Gloria, it wouldn't be 98.9 Northwest M Community Heart Radio without our top 5. And I'm wondering if, I don't know whether you've prepared, or you can think about 5 things that have sort of helped you get through your life that others might be able to grab onto, because we all go through stuff. Not many people go through what you've been through, because that seems impossible to get through in many ways. But here you are, you've got through it. But it would be good to think about your top 5 things in your life that have helped you overcome the challenges that you've been through, and you are going through, and you will go through. What sort of would be your top 5 things? And I'll give you a moment to think about it, because Kelly, we've all got challenges in life, and there could be something else for all of us here in these in Gloria's top 5, eh?
Yeah, absolutely. I was just going to say to all our listeners and viewers, if there's anything that you think, you want Gloria to share, or the word advocate keeps coming up for me, Gloria. Like you're in that place now where I said to you earlier, what drives you? And the word advocacy keeps coming up for me. Where you look to, there's a purpose and there's a reason why you're here. And like you're saying, when you're in the boot, if it was lightning, anything, and you're seeing the gaps, and that's why you're here. And I take my hat off to you, for having that view. But keen to hear from anyone who's watching this and listening, anything else that you really is, speaking to you about Gloria's circumstance, and not just this, but your journey as well, because it's quite a journey. It hasn't just been that weekend, like you said, it's many, many years.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, the court process was, in that process was horrible itself. The last year, the 2018 was the worst, because my mom passed away literally month before he was sentenced. So I had to decide between, literally, my sister called me up this is on a Thursday. I was at Stone Soup and we were cooking a meal. My sister called up in the morning saying, Mom is in ICU. I think you need to come. And I was like, and I'm thinking, I can't come. I have to stay for the sentencing. And the same day, I had an appointment with my psychologist, and the discussion I had was, do I stay or do I go? So I decided to go. I said, I don't know how long I'll be there, but I'll go for 2 weeks. I can squeeze 2 weeks between the sentencing. If Mom lives, if she doesn't. It's like I had to give somewhere. Sadly, she passed away on the day. It's been a horrible journey. But at the same time, there's one thing biggest thing I think so. I keep saying my faith, and also is my community of friends that have supported me. So definitely. And so going back to Mark, I did write 5 points.
Oh, you did? Great. All right. Well, let's, because this is very big for the Community Heart Radio. We all love our 5 points, and Julio loves this segment too. He gets to write them down, which is fantastic. We've got to get him doing something, Gloria, because he can tend to fall asleep on the show if we don't get him working.
So I did write it down. So I wrote number 1 was take time to heal. So I think it's really important. It's one thing I've learned. I've tried to rush healing. Doesn't work. It has to take its time. But, it also has a tendency you can get stagnant if you don't push yourself, if you don't challenge yourself and don't go into places where you don't want to. But yes, definitely take time to heal, whatever that takes. Don't be silly, but rationally, with a good psychologist, I would say, take time to heal.
I was just going to ask you, Gloria, and Esther sort of touched on it as well, where she's asked, she may have missed, but can you explain a bit more about your faith in what and who? Is that a way for your healing? Talk to us a bit about that.
Yes, I'm a Christian, so I do believe in Jesus, and that's my faith. Like I said, during the boot, I prayed a lot. I grew up in a church, so I sang, hymns, old hymns, Amazing Grace, and different things that sort of kept me sane and going. Because there's a story in the Bible where Paul and Barnabas, they were chained up, and so they sang songs and the chains broke. I was like, I was waiting for the boot to open up. I guess that didn't happen, but I guess the boardroom broke. Yes,
Wow.
That's my fight back.
Well, look, that's a great one, taking time to heal as your first point. What's your second point, Gloria?
Forgive. Forgiveness is the biggest one. The last day Darren had me, I looked him straight in his eyes and I said, I forgive you. He wasn't happy about that, but I guess because it showed he didn't have control over me. But I did state that. So forgiveness.
And did that sort of something you had to do more than once? Like you said, you're forgiving, but obviously you would have got angry again about what happened, and then you had to forgive him again, was it? Or
forgiveness for me personally, I believe is a daily process. You have to forgive every day, because every day you can find something to hate or something to be bitter about. So forgiveness is a daily process. I prayed for him right till the day he died, pretty much. So once I found myself, I wasn't praying. I thought I was going cold-hearted and horrible person, but when I found out he passed away, it was around the same time I had stopped praying for him. So yeah, I still pray for his family. So it
Wow.
definitely.
Good on
So that's
you.
number two.
Number
Forgive.
2. Okay. Number 3.
Give. So give time, give a listening ear, give your friendship. I guess give. You can give things if you have, if you like giving presents. So or yeah, anything. Just giving. I found giving is also healing because it sort of takes away from your own pain. Sometimes you realize there are other people in the communities they're doing hard as well. So by giving, it takes away and takes away the focus from yourself to somebody else. So I found giving is healing even in your brokenness. So definitely giving. That's number 3. Number 4, learn something new. So that I found that very healing as well. So learning something new. I recently went and got myself a motorbike license. So yes. So
Good on you. Good on you.
Mark is not too happy about that one.
It's a bit dangerous out there on a motorbike, but yeah, out you go, eh?
No.
Augustine says your angel without wings, an angel without wings. Eh? Awesome blessings. Wow, fantastic, Augustine.
Thank you. It's like learn something new. Learn a language. You don't have to go get a motorbike license, but learn a new language. I know, learn pottery or find something new because it also pushes your brain to be creative and be more open. And yeah, so definitely learn something new. And number 5, the last one, I guess, love unconditionally. And love, I guess, I
mean, some people would think you couldn't do that after what you've been through, Gloria. How do you love unconditionally after what you've been through in your life?
Because I have been loved unconditionally, because that's my faith says so. So I can, if I have been loved unconditionally, I can give that out unconditionally. I think so. That's the best way to put it. Not only that, I guess I've read this quote somewhere where they said, it said something around the lines. I'm paraphrasing it, but it's not the exact words on it. It said, I love you, but then it said something along the lines, when people can say, I hate everybody, I hate people, why can't you say I love you as well? So when we can, we can hate so generally, we can put, I hate this people group or I hate that or whatever. I guess if you can hate somebody, then you can love as well. It's a choice. So I guess I choose love in the sense. Yeah.
Well, Kelly, you'd like love. Augustine reckons love is the greatest. Would you agree with that, Kel?
Yeah, I do. I do, because it comes back to when you're saying about forgiveness too, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So if you love someone unconditionally, you forgive them, right? Yeah.
I think so. In that sense, I won't say I hated Darren or I hate Darren. I would not say. He made wrong choices. He made bad choices for himself, which harmed him and harmed me. But that does not mean I hate him. So even though he's dead, if that makes sense.
You are a walking miracle. Not a lot of people could talk like you do after what you've been through, Gloria. But amazing. It's great having you here on Community Heart Radio, 98.9 Northwest FM. We're coming to the end of the show, but you've got time to make some more comments. We'd love to hear from you. Augustine, it's been good hearing from you. You too, Esther. We've got Christopher and James. Lovely hearing from you guys on the show tonight. Julio, have we got our top 5?
Yes, we do. We have number 1, take time to heal. Number 2, forgiveness. Number 3, give, be a giving person. Number 4, learn something new. Get a motorcycle license, Mark approves. And number 5, love unconditionally.
Thanks for sharing your top 5, Gloria. They're fantastic. We might just get some comments from Kelly about your top 5. What do you think about those 5, Kelly? Any stand out for you?
I think they all do. Gloria, I was just going to ask you, aside from those top 5, I shouldn't say aside, but what would be one of your takeaway points from this situation and from this journey that you could give to others listening and watching the show live and later? Because as I said, the word to me speaks about advocacy. You know, you're obviously seeing that big hole when you're saying you contacted Monash, for example. But also I just think you'd be an amazing speaker to speak to so many different organizations and community members about, you know, in those different such situations of how you've overcome this long term.
Definitely. I think I do see myself in that way without even, I don't know, shouting and, you know, announcing myself, should I say.
Yeah.
And I think so. I touched on this when I said, when I mentioned, like how, like, what do I do from the lessons I've learned? It's like I mentioned, there's hole in the system, and being a good steward of that. I think so. I guess advocacy comes in it. You know, somebody had asked me, is like, do you like lobbying about things? I'm like, not really. I'm happy and, you know, give me a, you know, I don't know, give me something to talk about 100 people. I will do that in a minute. But I think it is, just speaking against injustice is quite sort of become sort of quite embedded in me, in the sense of living through it, and not only that, seeing it as well in the community, and that it just reinforces that need to speak up for women and men and children. I think so, because I also there's another thing I want to state is like thinking of you is not just for the clothes we are providing is not just for women. I do realize assault just happens all across. So it's for women, children, men, everybody. So yeah.
Well, Gloria, I do think your top 5 reflects the person you are. You're very loving, forgiving. You're a giver, and this charity you've started, thinking about you from one survivor to another. Julio's going to put a link to your Facebook page on our Facebook page, and so people that want to support you and what you're doing, give you a donation. I mean, you'd really like help. It's just starting off this charity. What sort of help are you looking for, Gloria?
Financial donations always comes handy, so because it fills in gaps for the things, you know, people miss out on donations. At the moment, it's a one-man band. I mean, I do have a board, but like the sole person.
Didn't know you had a band, but that's good.
You're playing the drums, Mark.
Yeah.
No, we want to support that charity from thinking of you from one survivor to another. We'll have the Facebook page on ours. We're winding up. We've got 2 minutes to go, Julio. Just want to quickly take us through these messages.
Yeah, David.
From David. Yep. Go Julio.
Sharing so bravely is such an important truth. Then you got Augustine saying a person who can love is free to be positive, and love is giving. Very good, Augustine. And Augustine again, hate is like a weight tied to your feet. You can run or move forward. It's a blessing to forgive. There you go.
Fantastic. Well, it's been great having you on the show tonight, Gloria. Really appreciate you sharing from your heart, sharing from your experience, but sharing hope. You know, that message of Easter, as we talked about, the hope that you give is really, really great. And thank you. And Kelly, any final words from yourself? Hang on,
Thank you so much for coming on the show, Gloria. I think a lot of people will learn a lot from you. The journey that you have gone through, and they're going to keep on learning from you.
Thank you.
And Julio, your final comment, mate?
No, thanks for sharing. That was really nice for you to come forward this way. It must be so hard for you first to get to this level, but you know, I really, you're a very positive person.
Thank you. Thank you,
Gloria.
Matt.
Thank you,
Thank you, Matt.
It's good. We'll see you next week. Community Heart Radio, 98.9 Northwest FM. Thanks again, Gloria, for sharing your life.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
See ya.
Thank you for joining us this evening. Tune in every Wednesday evening at 8 p.m. or watch us on YouTube, Facebook, and follow us on LinkedIn and other social media.